Hey everybody, my name's Jeff Schneider and I'm making a video today on reharmonization. Now the melody that you just heard, I'm sure you've heard it before. It's Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I wanted to use this particular song to demonstrate how I go about reharming because it's such an easy melody and a straightforward tune. So the first step to reharmonizing a tune is to make sure you're familiar with the melody. Obviously Mary Had a Little Lamb is an easy melody and that's why we're using it for today. You know how it goes. The next step is to make sure you're familiar with the original harmony. Mary Had a Little Lamb is has some very simple harmony, just really makes use of the 1 chord and the 5 chord. Something like that. Just making use of C and G. The next step to reharmonizing really comes down to a lot of harmonic exploration. So what I do is I take a look at each individual melody note. So for instance, starting with this E, and then trying out some different chords that work with this E. So obviously C major works because E is the 3rd, but what if we made E the major 7th? In that case it would be F major 7, where E is the major 7th. What if we made E the 9 on like a minor 9 chord? That would be D minor 9. It would sound like this. Alrighty. Let's do one more. What if E was the sharp 9? That would be on like a D flat 7 sharp 9, something like this. Alright, so you have all of these different options, and it really depends on what kind of sound you're looking for. The best advice I can give you is just to try a bunch of different ideas, different options here using different chords, and then seeing or hearing what you like best. One other important side note is to remember that it's not all about each individual chord. A big part has to do with how one chord leads to the next. So careful not to get lost in the trees and lose sight of the forest. Every once in a while kind of step back and play one chord going to the next. So one approach to reharmonization is using a single chord for each individual melody note. Now that's what I actually did at the beginning of the reharm I played at the top of the video, and this is what it sounded like. Now that can be very complex and at times a bit chaotic if you're not careful. So what I'm referring to here is using a chord for each individual melody note. Another approach is to use one chord for a few melody notes. Something like this maybe. So in that situation we have, or in that example, we have fewer chords but the same amount of melody notes. Both approaches work well. It's just a matter of what sound you're looking for and the feel. So let's go back to what I was doing before. And let's break that down a little bit. So we started in C major, which is the original first chord of the original harmony, so that works well. And what I'm doing here is a descending bass line. So if I just play the bass line, it sounds like this. Alright, so that's a bit of diatonic, and then it goes chromatic. And that structure of the descending bass line really works nicely. It gives all of these kind of crazy jazz chords some structure, and it makes it easier to digest for the listener. So I'll play it one more time. And those chords specifically are C major, that's a G over a B, that's an A minor 7. This is like a, you could call this an F minor 6 over A flat. There's a few other names. You could call it a D diminished over A flat. I'll think of it as an F minor 6 over A flat. Anyway, this is a C major over G. That's a G flat 7. And then resolves down to the 4 chord, which is F major 7. And I'm adding in the 9 there as well for some color. All right. So after that, this is where things get a little bit more out there. I go into this So I go from E flat major 7 to A flat 7 sharp 11. Now on the E flat major 7, that melody note, the D, is the major 7, and on the A flat 7 sharp 11, the D is now the sharp 11. And the reason I think it works is because that E flat going to that A flat is the interval of a fourth. And if you look closely at a 2-5-1 progression, something like D minor, G7, C major 7, those intervals are all fourths. D going to G, and then you can think of the G going up to C. So you have 2, 5, 1, and those are all moving in fourths or fifths depending on the direction you're going. So let's back it up a bit. So the E flat major 7 going to the A flat 7 sharp 11 works nicely because of that interval of a fourth in the bass. The next chord progression I used was this. So E flat major 7, A flat 7, D minor 7, and then a G sus resolving to a G7. That's the C resolving to the B. Now again, we have this D minor 7 to the G7. That's a fourth. That's that 2-5 I just referred to. And again, we have some crazy chords, but we're using the bass line, we're using the intervallic relationship of the bass notes to provide some structure. So if I just play the bass notes, it sounds like this. And that's not so crazy. That doesn't sound so crazy anymore. Let's add in those chords again. All right, let's move on. The next chord progression is one that I've been using a long time. It's something I just stole off of I think I stole it off of like a demo on some electric piano I came across. And essentially what's happening here So let's pause there for a second. So we're jumping right into this progression with So I'm going to think of this as like an F sharp minor 7 flat 5. You can also call that an F sharp half diminished chord. And it's resolving to an F minor. You could also go to just a regular F minor or use that F minor 7. The difference between that is the F here and the E flat. You see that on the keyboard there. Now E minor, A sus resolving to A7 flat 9. These two notes in here, that's the 4 resolving to the 3 and the 9 resolving to the flat 9. So again, all right, now last but not least, 2, that's the 2 chord, D minor. D flat 7 sharp 9 resolving to the C. Okay, so what's happening here is you have the 2 chord. Now the D flat is what we call a tritone substitution. And that's a fancy word for a pretty simple concept. You may have heard about this before. All it's happening here is that we're going from the 2 chord, which is D, to a D flat in the bass, and that D flat is a tritone away from G. What's a tritone? Well, tritone is 3 whole steps. So D flat to E flat is 1 whole step, E flat to F is 2 whole steps, and F to G is your 3rd whole step. So that's the tritone away from one another. And if we were to just play that chord progression as D minor, G7, C major, that's just your regular 2-5-1, right? But no, we are doing a tritone substitution for that 5 chord. So instead of the G, we're using D flat 7 sharp 9. All right. Now, there's one other little bonus thing here I did at the beginning of the video, just sort of a little gospel way of ending the reharmonization here. I think it was. It's a nice little cadence to tie a little bow at the end of this thing. So that's, and the riff I did was, so there's that whole little section slowed down for you. And I'll end with this. There's a lot of possibilities. You might even say infinite possibilities for reharmonization and knowing which chords to choose and exploring different options. You're going to find that you gravitate towards certain chord progressions, that there are certain chord progressions that just you love and you want to know what they are. And those are the chord progressions you need to learn first. Figure out why they work, figure out how to play them in different keys, and then see if you can apply them and repurpose them to simple songs like Mary Had a Little Lamb. And the more you do that, the more you build that repertoire of harmony, the faster you're going to be at reharming your own songs, reharming other people's songs, and creating really exciting harmonic textures. So I'll leave you with that. It's a lot of information here. Again, as I always say, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. I also offer Skype lessons, which is another great way to improve your skills and get you to the next level very, very quickly. It's a much more personalized approach. We can connect directly, and that's an option that's always on the table. Again, you can email me at jeffschneidermusic@gmail.com to set those up, and I'd be happy to give you more information. But until then, I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for watching.